Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at Viking Therapeutics,
Okay.
ticker symbol VKTX,
All right.
a biotech company making waves with its obesity treatment, VK2735. There's a lot of buzz surrounding it.
Yeah.
So we're going to break down what we've learned from recent news and analyst reports to help you make informed investment decisions.
Sounds good.
It's certainly a hot topic.
It is.
And you're right, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
First things first.
Right.
Let's talk about what has investors so excited.
All right.
VK2735, their obesity treatment currently in phase 2 trials, is showing some really promising results.
Oh, wow.
Some analysts are even calling it a potential best-in-class treatment.
Interesting.
And what does that mean for you?
Yeah, what does that mean?
It means that early data suggests VK2735 could be outperforming competitors in terms of weight loss and potentially with fewer side effects.
Okay.
This could be huge because it could lead to faster FDA approval and a larger market share, making it a more attractive investment.
That makes sense.
And you can't forget about the market itself.
Right.
The obesity treatment market is enormous and rapidly growing.
Huge market.
It's projected to be worth billions of dollars in the coming years.
Wow.
So the potential for a company like Viking Therapeutics with a potentially game-changing treatment is immense.
It is.
Okay, so we've got this potentially groundbreaking treatment in a booming market.
Okay.
But before you jump in head first,
Right.
let's take a closer look at Viking Therapeutics as a company and what their financials tell us.
Yeah, looking beyond the hype is crucial. As we mentioned, Viking Therapeutics isn't profitable yet.
Right.
They're still in the development stage.
Okay.
Meaning they're spending heavily on research and development, which is typical for biotech companies at this stage.
So they're spending a lot,
Yeah.
which leads to the question, how are they funding these operations?
Okay.
Do they have enough cash to keep the lights on, so to speak?
Good question. Their last earnings call showed nearly $94 million in cash reserves. Okay, based on their current burn rate, this should give them enough runway for the next few quarters, maybe even longer.
That's good news.
It is.
But of course, we have to remember that this situation is constantly evolving.
Right.
Okay, so we know they aren't profitable yet.
Okay.
But what about revenue?
Yeah.
Are they generating any income at this point?
Not from sales of VK2735, no.
Okay.
Their current revenue stream comes primarily from collaboration agreements and licensing deals.
So their financial success really hinges on VK2735 hitting the market.
Exactly. The approval and launch of VK2735 would be the major catalyst.
Right.
And if it's as successful as some analysts predict, we could see significant revenue growth and a dramatic change in their financial picture.
Now, speaking of analysts,
Okay.
there's been a lot of talk about their price targets for Viking Therapeutics.
There has.
We've seen some wildly different projections.
Oh, really?
JP Morgan and Oppenheimer are particularly bullish, with price targets of $80 and even $138 respectively.
Wow, 138.
A $138 price target.
Yeah,
That's incredibly optimistic.
that's high.
What's fueling that kind of confidence? Are they seeing something that others are missing?
Well, their confidence seems to stem from the impressive early clinical data for VK2735.
Okay.
And they clearly believe in its potential to be a market leader.
Okay.
They also recognize the huge market opportunity in obesity treatment.
Right.
They're essentially betting on VK2735 being a blockbuster drug.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's also important to remember that not all analysts share that level of enthusiasm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Morgan Stanley, for example, has a more measured outlook projecting upside potential between 15% to 30%. So still positive, but a much more conservative estimate.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's such a discrepancy between these projections?
It likely boils down to different assumptions about how successful the clinical trials will be,
Okay.
the timeline for regulatory approvals,
Right.
and how effectively Viking Therapeutics will be able to compete in this increasingly crowded market.
Right.
It's important to consider all these factors.
So we've got this exciting new treatment with the potential to disrupt a huge market.
Right.
But we also have to acknowledge the financial realities of a company that's not yet profitable and the differing opinions of market analysts.
Exactly.
Investing in biotech is never straightforward.
Yeah,
It's crucial to weigh the potential rewards against the inherent risks.
definitely.
All right, so now that we've established what makes VK2735 so exciting and looked at Viking Therapeutics from a financial standpoint, let's dive into some of those risks in more detail.
Right.
What are some of the specific challenges they might face?
Well, regulatory hurdles are a big one.
Okay.
The FDA approval process for any new drug is rigorous.
Yep.
And there's always a chance VK2735 could encounter delays or even be rejected.
Right. Regulatory setbacks are a constant threat in the pharmaceutical industry.
IR.
What other challenges should investors be aware of?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, the obesity treatment market is becoming increasingly competitive. Several other companies are developing similar treatments, some even further along in the process than Viking Therapeutics.
So it's a race to the finish line.
It is.
And Viking Therapeutics will need to demonstrate that VK2735 is truly superior to the alternatives.
Exactly.
That's why the upcoming clinical trial data is so critical.
Yeah.
They need to show strong results that prove VK2735 is not only effective, but also safe.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got regulatory hurdles, fierce competition. Anything else that could potentially derail Viking Therapeutics' success?
We also have to remember their cash situation.
Right.
While they have enough to operate for now,
Okay.
they'll likely need to raise additional capital in the future to fund ongoing operations and those crucial clinical trials.
And raising additional capital often means issuing more shares, which can dilute the value of existing shares and impacts the stock price.
Precisely.
So dilution is another potential risk that investors should keep in mind.
It is.
So as you can see, there are a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah.
And it's a complex situation to analyze.
It certainly is.
Investing in biotech requires careful consideration and a thorough understanding of both the potential and the risks.
For sure.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into Viking Therapeutics.
We have.
We've looked at their potentially game-changing obesity treatment, their financial situation, the bullish and bearish perspectives of market analysts, and some of the key challenges they face.
Got it.
But we're not done yet. There's still more to explore.
Okay, cool.
Next, we'll shift gears and take a closer look at the overall landscape of the obesity treatment market.
All right, sounds good.
Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Last time we started unpacking Viking Therapeutics, ticker symbol VKTX.
Okay.
And their exciting obesity treatment, VK2735.
Right.
We looked at their financials, expert opinions, and some potential hurdles they might face.
Okay.
Now let's zoom out and consider the bigger picture.
Okay.
The obesity treatment market itself.
All right.
This will help us understand where Viking Therapeutics fits in.
Yeah.
And what its prospects might be.
Sounds good.
That's a great next step.
Yeah.
Let's paint a picture of this market for our listeners.
Okay.
The global obesity treatment market is already massive.
It is. It is.
And it's projected to reach billions of dollars in the coming years.
Billions with a B.
Billions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It is.
What's driving this rapid growth?
It's a combination of several powerful trends.
Okay.
You've got rising obesity rates worldwide.
Right.
Which unfortunately shows no signs of slowing down.
Yeah.
Then there's increased awareness of the health risks linked to obesity. People are more aware now than ever before of the serious complications that can arise, like heart disease, diabetes, and certain types of cancer.
Yeah.
And finally, we're seeing a lot of exciting advancements in treatment options, which is creating a buzz and driving investment in the sector.
So there's a clear and growing need for effective obesity treatments.
There is.
And companies like Viking Therapeutics are vying to meet that demand. Can you give us a sense of the existing treatment landscape?
Sure.
What options are currently available?
There are a few main approaches.
Okay.
The first is lifestyle interventions, which are always the foundation.
Right.
This includes things like diet and exercise programs, which can be effective for some individuals, but often require a lot of effort and support.
Yeah.
Then you have medications.
Okay.
There are older drugs that have been around for a while and some newer ones that are showing promise.
Okay.
But they often come with limitations or side effects.
Right.
And lastly, for severe cases, there is bariatric surgery.
Right.
Which can be very effective, but is a major procedure with its own risks and considerations.
So while there are options available,
Yeah.
there's definitely room for improvement.
There is.
Which is where a potential game changer like VK2735 comes in.
Exactly.
Can you remind our listeners what makes this treatment so unique?
Absolutely. VK2735 is a dual GLP-1 and GIP receptor agonist.
Okay.
Now, I know that sounds technical.
Right.
So let me break it down for you.
Please.
GLP-1 and GIP are hormones that regulate appetite and metabolism.
Okay.
VK2735 targets both of these hormones simultaneously, which is what makes it so powerful.
Okay.
It's like tackling the problem of obesity from two different angles at once.
That's a really helpful analogy.
I try.
Makes sense that this dual action approach would be more effective than targeting just one hormone. And remember, we talked earlier about VK2735 potentially being best in class.
Right.
Why is that significant?
Early clinical data is showing that VK2735 is not only highly effective in promoting weight loss, but also has a favorable safety profile.
Okay.
Now, why does this matter to you as an investor?
Yeah, why?
Well, if VK2735 is indeed safer and more effective than its competitors, that could translate into a smoother and faster FDA approval process.
Right.
It could also mean that doctors are more likely to prescribe it, and patients are more likely to stick with the treatment.
Right.
All of this could lead to a larger market share for Viking Therapeutics, making it a more attractive investment for you.
So a better product could lead to a faster path to market and greater success in a competitive landscape.
Exactly.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
But as we discussed earlier, Viking Therapeutics isn't alone in this race.
No, they're not.
What other companies are working on similar treatments?
Yeah.
Who are their main competitors?
There are a few big players you should be aware of.
Okay.
Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, both giants in the pharmaceutical industry, are heavily invested in developing GLP-1 and GIP receptor agonists. And there are a number of smaller biotech companies also entering the fray.
So it's a crowded field with some serious competition.
It is.
How does Viking Therapeutics plan to stand out and gain a foothold in this market?
Their strategy seems to be twofold.
Okay.
First, they're hoping that further clinical data will solidify VK2735's position as the most effective and safest treatment in its class.
Okay.
They're betting on the science to speak for itself.
Makes sense.
And second, remember that oral tablet formulation they're developing.
Right. That convenient pill form could be a real differentiator.
It could.
Especially compared to some of the injectable treatments currently on the market.
Exactly. Patient convenience is a huge factor.
Yeah.
And that oral formulation could give Viking Therapeutics a real edge.
Oh.
It could make VK2735 more appealing to both doctors and patients.
Right.
Which could ultimately translate into higher sales and a greater market share.
So Viking Therapeutics is operating in a booming market.
They are.
With a potentially superior product.
Yeah.
And a smart strategy. But we've also discussed some potential risks and challenges they'll need to navigate.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've talked about regulatory hurdles, intense competition, the need to raise additional capital, and the potential for dilution.
Yeah, those are big ones.
All of these factors add a layer of complexity and uncertainty to the equation.
Sure.
Okay, so a lot to consider.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a good grasp of the market dynamics and Viking Therapeutics' place within it.
I think so.
Now let's shift our focus to the company's financials in more detail.
Right.
What key metrics should investors be paying attention to as they evaluate Viking Therapeutics?
Okay, good question.
Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. We're wrapping up our look at Viking Therapeutics today. Ticker symbol VKTAX.
Okay.
We've talked about their potentially best-in-class obesity treatment,
Right.
VK2735,
Right.
the competitive landscape, and the massive market opportunity.
Yep.
Now let's shift gears and delve deeper into the company's financial performance.
All right, sounds good.
This is where you as an investor need to really scrutinize the numbers to understand the company's current health and future potential.
You're absolutely right.
A company's financials are the backbone of any sound investment decision.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start with what we touched upon earlier.
Okay.
Viking Therapeutics is not currently profitable.
Right.
In fact, their adjusted operating income over the past 12 months was negative $124.68 million.
Negative $124.68 million?
Now, for some listeners, that might sound alarming.
Yeah, that's a big number.
But is this actually unusual for a biotech company in their stage of development?
It's not uncommon at all.
Okay.
Remember, Viking Therapeutics is heavily investing in research and development.
Right.
Which is essential for bringing new treatments to market.
Okay.
Clinical trials are expensive, but they're a necessary part of the process.
Right.
So while a negative operating income isn't ideal, it's not necessarily a red flag in this case.
That makes sense. So they're spending a lot. But they need to in order to advance their drug development.
Right.
The key question then becomes, how are they funding these operations? Yeah. And more importantly, do they have enough cash on hand to continue this level of spending?
Excellent point.
Fortunately, Viking Therapeutics does have a relatively strong cash position.
They do.
As we mentioned earlier, their last earnings call revealed they had almost $94 million in cash and cash equivalents.
94 million.
That's a decent amount.
It is.
But given their current burn rate, how long will that last?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And it's hard to predict with absolute certainty.
Yeah.
The burn rate can fluctuate depending on the progress of their clinical trials and other factors.
Right.
But based on their current spending patterns, they likely have enough cash to operate for at least a few more quarters.
Okay.
Possibly even longer.
So they're not in immediate danger of running out of cash.
Right.
Which is good news.
It is.
But it's definitely something investors need to monitor closely.
I agree. Keep an eye on their cash position in future earnings reports to get a sense of their financial runway.
Okay, so we've talked about profitability and their cash position.
Okay.
Let's turn our attention to revenue.
Right.
Are they generating any income at this point?
Not from product sales, no. As we discussed earlier, their current revenue is derived primarily from collaboration agreements and licensing deals with other pharmaceutical companies.
So for the moment, their financial success is very much tied to VK2735.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
The approval and successful commercialization of VK2735 would be the major turning point.
Right.
If it becomes the blockbuster drug that some analysts are predicting, it would dramatically transform their financial picture.
Okay, so a lot hinges on VK2735.
Yeah.
Which makes sense given their stage of development.
It does.
Now let's talk about some key metrics that you as an investor should be paying attention to as you evaluate Viking Therapeutics. Where should people focus their attention when they're looking at the company's financials?
There are a few key areas to watch.
Okay.
First, keep an eye on their research and development expenses.
Right.
These expenses will likely remain high as they continue their clinical trials.
Okay.
But you want to see that the money is being spent wisely and is leading to tangible progress in their drug development programs.
So track their R&D spending, but make sure it's translating into results.
Exactly.
What else should investors be looking at?
It's important to monitor their cash burn rate.
Okay.
How quickly are they using their cash reserves? As we discussed, they have a decent cushion right now, but that could change depending on their spending and the timeline for VK2735's approval.
Right. Cash is king, especially for a company in their position.
Exactly. And another crucial metric to watch is their debt levels.
Okay.
How much debt do they have, and what are the terms of that debt?
Okay.
High debt levels can be a red flag, especially if the company isn't generating significant revenue yet.
So R&D expenses, cash burn rate, and debt levels.
Yep.
Those are three critical areas for investors to keep an eye on as they assess Viking Therapeutics' financial health.
Absolutely.
By tracking these metrics and comparing them to industry benchmarks, investors can gain valuable insights into the company's financial performance and make more informed decisions.
Great advice.
Now, I know we talked about the massive market opportunity in obesity treatment.
We did.
But it's important to acknowledge that investing in biotech, especially a company like Viking Therapeutics, comes with inherent risks.
That's very true. We've discussed those risks in detail.
Yeah.
Regulatory hurdles, intense competition, the need for additional funding, and potential dilution.
Right.
But there's one more risk that we need to emphasize.
Okay.
The inherent uncertainty of drug development.
What do you mean by that?
Even with the most promising drug candidate, there's always a chance that clinical trials could fail, that unexpected side effects could emerge, or that the FDA could reject the drug for approval.
Wow.
There are many points along the way where things can go wrong.
So even if everything seems perfect on paper, there's no guarantee of success.
Exactly. That's why investing in biotech requires a certain level of risk tolerance. It's a high-stakes game, but the potential rewards can be enormous.
Okay, so high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
But I think we've provided our listeners with a comprehensive look at Viking Therapeutics, their potential, and the risks involved.
I think so.
It's up to each individual investor to weigh those factors and decide if this company aligns with their investment goals and risk appetite.
Well said. Information is power, and I believe we've given our listeners the tools they need to make informed decisions.
And remember, this is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Always conduct thorough research, consider multiple perspectives, and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Sound advice.
All right, that wraps up our discussion on Viking Therapeutics. We hope you found this episode insightful and helpful.